Oh, what a point to end it on.
So now this is when they're at their best. And when they're 12 years for this. So drink it in.
Still goes through offense this year.
What he loves to be immortality as an athlete. 19.79. It's a goal. It's 8 goals.
To end it on.
So now this is when they're at their best. And when they're 12 years for this. So drink it in.
Still goes through offense this year.
What he loves to be immortality as an athlete. 19.79. It's a goal. It's 8 goals.
Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. This weekend, our main focus will be on the parting of ways between the Nigerian Football Federation and Coach Pesero. Of course, after the expiration of his contract, both parties have parted ways. Beyond that, it is a weekend of qualification for the quarter-final stage of both the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup. Which of the teams will qualify for the knockout stage of the competition? This will be our main focus. Beyond that, we have a couple of passes coming in from the world of Formula One, maybe tennis, and of course, the focus on the teams that are beginning to cement their places in the respective football leagues across the top 5 leagues in the world, and especially the Nigerian Premier League here in Nigeria. So it is a loaded weekend, and we'll bring you most of the details here right on Atlantic Television Network. One will return from the break. Welcome back. Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. This weekend I have with me Kingsley Manuel. Nice to have you, Kingsley.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. Very happy to be here.
Yes, because before we get to our main focus, which is the parting of ways between the Super Eagles head coach Pesero and the Nigerian Football Federation, we'll take a couple of pass across. First, from the world of Formula One. The Formula One season is almost here, and ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix, the teams have been getting prepared. Red Bull, of course, are defending champions, and but again, there is still the revered Lewis Hamilton in Formula One and Mercedes. But how prepared are the teams ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix, Kingsley?
Yeah, the teams, I think all of the teams are well prepared, despite the fact that we saw some setback, of course, for the practice sections we saw yesterday ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix, this weekend, and it looks as if it's going to be a Red Bull team as well this season, but it's too early to say because anything can happen at this point in time. But we saw the likes of Max Verstappen, taking pole position, this time around. So it's almost looking like what we saw, last 2 seasons. But it's really actually is something to look out for, because from what we've seen at this point in time, all of the teams are prepared. Max Verstappen and his teammates, of course, didn't do badly in the practice section. Max Verstappen taking up the pole position this time around, and that gave Red Bull, of course, an edge, especially in this Bahrain Grand Prix. But it was so sad for the Mercedes team, which so many thought, of course, they were going to come back, with full force this time around. also sad seeing Lewis Hamilton finishing in ninth position, in the practice section and the pole position this time. So for what we've seen at this point, it's not really looking like we might see that challenge, we might see that competition. Red Bull are taking it, this time around, and Max Verstappen putting up, that pole position. I think is a huge statement of intent this season from what we've seen so far. We're hoping that the likes of Mercedes, you talk about the likes of Ferrari, Aston Martin, of course, will probably, put some huge challenge this time around. But it's looking like we're not going to see that competition from what we're seeing, from the practice sections we saw yesterday ahead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. But we'll keep our fingers crossed. Too early to see, like I mentioned. We'll see if the likes of Mercedes will step up their game. And Lewis Hamilton, this is going to be his last season, of course, with the Mercedes team, because next season he'll be moving down to another constructor. I think he wants to make a statement, of course, for himself this time around before he actually make that move. So that's why I said we still have more to look at for, despite the fact that Red Bull are just, of course, taking the season, in a very high note at this point in time. I think there's still more, to watch out for this season in Formula One.
More to watch out for this season in Formula One. The Bahrain Grand Prix being the very first, and teams are getting very, very late. Red Bull is not letting off this team. Remember, they are defending champions, and we hope that Ferrari can give them some challenge. For Mercedes, it's looking a little bit difficult, but we know that Russell, who presently plays 8th at the practice section, ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 9th position, may be begin to think of having maybe a change of strategy on how to catch up with Red Bull, because Sergio Perez and, of course, Max Verstappen are doing so well. But Clarence Norris as well should be thought of, while Martins of Fernando should as well get some mention ahead of the season. But it promises to be very thrilling, season in Formula One. So we'll keep you posted on all of the happenings ahead of this. But for the Bahrain Grand Prix, there's much to come with it. Well, that being a prelude, let's get to our main discussion. And one of our main discussion on this edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition is the issues between the Nigerian Football Federation and head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Just about 48 hours ago, we've seen the expiration of the contract of Jose Peseiro. His contract expired after the Nations Cup. You are aware of his performances that saw the nation win silver at the just concluded African Cup of Nations, and everyone thought that maybe, yes, given that he had surpassed his contract expectation. The contract expectation was that he should at least get to the semi-final stage of the African Cup of Nations. That he did, and of course moved even to the final where he lost. And everybody thought that because he has met up with his contractual obligations, that the contract will be renewed. But we knew of his relationship with some African countries who wanted to sign him, especially Algeria, and that did not come to pass. And there was opening of negotiations between him and the Nigerian Football Federation. But from what we've heard so far, that negotiation broke down at the point when Coach Peseiro was asking for $120,000, and the Nigerian Football Federation was insisting on $50,000, which is his last pay. So a gulf of $70,000 made Coach Peseiro, put up a statement thanking everybody that was involved in his coming to Nigeria a few months ago, and now he's saying bye-bye to Nigeria, hoping that he could get maybe a job elsewhere, or maybe there will be renewed negotiation between them. But for now, Nigerian Football Federation and Coach Peseiro have parted ways. Nigeria in search of a new head coach for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Kingsley, that's the build-up to this main discussion for today. There's been a lot flying around. $50,000 his last pay. Of course, that was a reduction from what it was when the new sports minister came and insisted that he has to go to the Nations Cup. Yeah. Now he's asking for $120,000, having met up with his contractual obligations. What is your perspective to this? You think it's a good vibe that the Super Eagles head coach has parted ways with the Nigerian Football Federation?
For me, I think it's not a good vibe at all. Not really at all. Because when you take a look at what Peseiro, of course, has been able to do for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, you expect that the NFF would have given him that opportunity to still continue as the head coach for the team. He hasn't done that badly. I think for the past 22 months that he has been in charge of the Super Eagles of Nigeria, the man has played 22 games, and out of 22 games he has won 11, and he has actually, we've seen him, of course, he has lost 7 of those games, and as well we've seen 4 draws out of the 22 matches he has played for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. For me, that is not a very bad record, despite the fact that yes, we got to the finals of the African Cup of Nations, but we didn't get that beautiful football that we all seek for at this point in time. For me, I think it shouldn't be about beautiful football. It's all about building. Pesero has been, of course, trying to build the Super Eagles of Nigeria for a very long time now. We'll see him bring some couple of players, especially in this African Cup of Nations. Who knows Stanley Nwabali before the African Cup of Nations, but he was able to go down there to spot out Stanley Nwabali from Chippa United. Talking about the likes of Hassan Yusuf as well. These are players that Pesiro, of course, actually brought down to the team, and a couple of others. So the man has actually gone a long way in trying to build the team. We saw the synergy, we saw the togetherness and the fighting spirit for the players at the African Cup of Nations. So for me, I think Pesiro has really gone a long way with this team. And talking about that huge amount of money he actually tabled down, that is something the NFF that was something that was very difficult for them to do, because the man was actually paid about, I think, $70,000. He was asked to take a pay cut, and he reduced it to $50,000. And for me, I think the NFF on their own part too didn't do well. If somebody have asked for $120,000 in thereabouts, and you actually tabling $50,000, that is not good enough. A coach that takes your team to the final of the African Cup of Nations. For the past 10 years, Nigeria have not been in the final of any competition. But Pesero came and took us to the final and gave us, put up another good ranking, of course, for the team. So I think for me, the NFF should have probably maybe consider in trying to see how they can meet up, not necessarily meeting up his demand, but see how they can actually up that amount of money and see if the man, of course, will be able to reverse his decision, and try to see how he can continue with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Take a look at this point in time. I think for me it's a dicey moment as it stands now, because we have a international window that will be coming up. The Super Eagles of Nigeria will engage in 1 or 2 friendlies, I think, this month, and I think as of July we'll be having the World Cup qualifiers. So at this moment in time, where you're taking away a manager that has acquainted himself with the players, a manager that does understand the team, a manager that is looking forward to bringing more glory to the national team, and you're letting him go at this point in time, is a huge worry. It's a huge worry. So for me, that's why I think it's not a good vibe at the moment for Nigerian football, especially for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Yes, we know a lot of expectation on the man. He has not met some, but at some point he's actually done enough for you to actually consider his demand, not necessarily meeting up his the amount he's actually tabled down, but try to see if you can actually get something close to that, because he has done enough for you. You tell him to get to the semi-final, or else he won't get another contract. He surpassed that target and got to the final. Yes, he couldn't win the African Cup of Nations, but we know that building from here, possibly we might get something better. So for me, I think it's not a good vibe at all from what we're seeing at this point in time. Pesero parting ways with the Super Eagles of Nigeria, not really a good vibe.
Not good vibes for the Super Eagles head coach to part ways with the Nigerian Football Federation, but Football Federation of Nigeria seems to be having some issues with funds. There's paucity of funds across most of the sporting federation in Nigeria, and the Football Federation is no exception to it. You think that could be the main reason why they do not want to up his salary from the $50,000 which he had earned grudgingly, just for the sake of taking the Super Eagles to the Nations Cup?
For me, I think it's one of the reasons. It's actually one of the reasons, because the NFF, of course, they have themselves to blame, in this particular, situation. I think the NFF is their federation, and if you take a look at it, they are when you take a look at football in the country, or maybe sporting federation in the country, NFF, they're a very big brand, an attractive brand, in that matter, that they should actually not only necessarily depending on the sport ministry or the government, for money to pay coaches, they can also attract sponsorship. Yes, that's one of the means whereby or some other federation, gets money to fund or to pay their coaches, pay match bonuses and all of that. So for me, I think they've not done well on their own part. What is Ibrahim Gusu doing? Yes, since he came, he's been trying administrative-wise to put things right. But what about the money aspects of for the game? What about you looking for means to attract sponsorship? When Amaju Pinnick was there, though so many will actually say that yes, Pinnick did not do well, but we saw some couple of sponsorship, for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. So for me, I think the NFL should still look for a means of trying to elevate themselves from always depending on the sport ministry. For you want to pay your coach, you depend on the sport ministry. The team want to go honor a friendly game, you depend on the sport ministry for fund. You want to go execute a particular tournament, you depend on the sport ministry for fund. No, it shouldn't be like that. You should look for a means of generating fund. You're a federation, and the federation is not supposed to depend 100% on the sport ministry. You are supposed to seek for fund. Take a look at some other smaller federation. Will I say smaller federation? We have like the handball federation. The other time we heard that the basketball wheelchair federation, they actually have a sponsor, and some other federations as well. So what is the NFF doing? They are when you talk about federation in the country, they are the highest. The brand is very huge. So why can't they attract sponsorship and see how they can fund some of this issue? Paucity of funds is actually the reason. But you're still telling the man to take $50,000. It's still small for a man who takes you to the final of the African Cup of Nations after 10 years. It's still very, very small. I think they should have probably upped that money. I know they won't be able to meet the target of Pesero, but see if they can up the money and convince the man to say it. So for me, I think the NFF should step up their game and see how they can resolve all of this issue going forward.
Nigeria Football Federation should up the game and see how they can resolve the issues that borders around finance with the payment of the head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But for now, Pesero is on holiday and looking at being courted by several other football federations. It was very high on the list of the Algerians, but the Algerians have signed Petrovic right now. And so, who is next? Which country will be looking at the direction of Cote d'Ivoire? I'm sorry, of Pesero, Kingsley.
For me, I think Pesero said he has about 7 offers on his table, and one of them, of course, was Algeria, who actually tabled in $90,000. And I'm still wondering, I'm still reasoning why he didn't take up that Algeria job. Maybe he's trying to look at the fact that he's going to go there to rebuild, because you take a look at that Algerian team now, any manager going down there is going there for rebuilding. So maybe he doesn't want to go there to actually go in that rebuilding process. We had the likes of Zamalek as well. We're also looking for his services, and we're still wondering and keeping our fingers crossed and see which of for these offers, Pesero, would take up this body. At the moment, Pesero is very hot in the market. Everyone is actually looking for his services, at this point in time. And that's why he's putting his demand, that very high, for the Nigerian Football Federation. So if you can't meet his target, he moves on to any country, of course, that will actually meet his target. So because of what he's been able to do in the African Cup of Nations, yes, Nigerians are still complaining that he didn't play beautiful football, but he takes the team to the final and was able to contend. And at the end of the day, this is where he is today. So the man is very hot in the market. So I think he said he's on a resting time now. I think after he might have done resting, definitely he will actually put the pen to paper on any country that is ready to have him at any point in time.
Reportedly, we have 7 countries looking out for Jose Pesero. Will he go for any of these 7? Because for now, Nigeria is out of the question. But who can say Nigeria can still go knocking on his door if he's available to be signed. But there's this other aspect of it that most of the Super Eagles players are asking for the return of Coach Pesero. Is this true? And if the players want him, how strong is the wish or the wishes of the players for their coach to return?
For me, I think some of the players want him back. Yes, William Chisekon was one man who actually said a lot of things, about Pesero, positive things, about Pesero. And we saw some couple of players as well, the likes of Alex Iwobi as well, and some other players of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. The players want him back. I think the players are, they're used to him from what we saw in the African Cup of Nations. for the first time, Mr. Siri, we saw the Super Eagles playing, with high level of unity, high level of synergy, high level of togetherness. It's been a long time we saw the Super Eagles, having that high level of synergy on the pitch of play, but from what Pesera has been able to do, we've seen the boys, playing not just for themselves, but for the glory of the country, and as well for the coach as well. So for me, I think majority of the players, they are for the coach, and they really want, of course, the coach, to maybe, come back, and take his job, as the coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But I think the chance is very slim. It's very slim for Pesero, of course, to make a U-turn at this point in time, because if he makes a U-turn, he's going to place a lot of demand. You're going to try to meet up that target which he has placed. And with the fact that you take a look at the situation that the NFF doesn't even pay him in time, and you want him to take $50,000 to come remain as the Super Eagles coach, and you still continue to owe him. So it is not a very good offer on the table, and I think that's why the man has decided to part ways with the team. But for me, with the players clamoring for his comeback, and let's see if the NFF will try as much as they can to see if they can up that money. Earlier on, I don't know how true that report is that the NFF, they decided to table about $75,000, but we're still looking for how to verify that to see if that is actually correct. But will Pesero accept that amount of money? We'll keep our fingers crossed and see how it goes.
Fingers are completely crossed to see how negotiations between Coach Pesero and the Nigerian Football Federation could be reopened everywhere possible. But if it's not possible, a lot of attention has been drawn to local coaches. We've seen in the last African Cup of Nations, a conglomeration of local coaches that took their respective countries to the Nations Cup. Yes, we saw Cote d'Ivoire with a local coach win the African Cup of Nations, that was decided in their country. Aware that they set out with a foreign coach, but after losing nearly most of the group stage games, he was dropped, and of course his assistant, which was a local, was saddled with responsibility. Incidentally, he was able to navigate the rest 4 games and won all of them, and now he's got the title and he's a champion. Talking about a massive fire for Cote d'Ivoire, and that looks like an indication where most of the other countries have beginning to think, why don't we leave the idea of a foreign coach and go local? And in Nigeria here, a lot of people are already suggesting the combination of Emmanuel Amunike and George Finidi. George Finidi, of course, is assistant to Coach Pesero. I don't know what you think, Kingsley. Should the Nigerian Football Federation look at the direction of local coaches, especially now that there is paucity of funds? I'm not too sure a local coach will be paid as much as $50,000 to perform as head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria.
Well, for me, I think that should be the way forward. Yes, due to the fact that there is paucity of fund in the NFF. That should be the way forward. But which of this local coach that will best fit, for the Super Eagles of Nigeria?
Nigeria has won the Nations Cup with a local coach before. Stephen Keshi comes to my mind at this point. Late Stephen Keshi.
Yeah. And for me, I think just like the man you mentioned, Emmanuel Amunike, is one man that actually coached, some of these players, the likes of Victor Osimhen in the under-17. We talk about the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho, and the rest. So he has good knowledge of these players. And when it has to do with tactics, I think Emmanuel Amunike also has it in him. From what we've seen so far, I think we could actually trace back what he did with the Tanzania side, at some point ago. And from what we've seen at this point, I think the man is really ready for the job, as it is. So Emmanuel Amunike should be one man if we're opting for a local manager. It should be one man the NFF, of course, should be looking towards at this point in time, because I think he has what it takes. We saw him the last time being an assistant to Austin Eguavon when the Super Eagles, of course, went to the African Cup of Nations in Cameroon. They had a very impressive performance in the group stage, but were knocked out in the round of 16, and that was so bad. And with the fact that they came back and couldn't qualify for the World Cup in Qatar, was an abysmal outing, and the NFF, of course, they have to let him and Eguavon go. But this time around, I think he should be. And he after that particular qualifier, talking about the World Cup qualifier, he came out to say that it wasn't him. He was not the one at the end of affairs. It was Austin, Eguavon. So I think the NFF should give him a try. They should try Emmanuel Amunike and see what he'll be able to do, of course, with the team. So for me, I think a combination of Amunike and Finidi George will be a good combo this time around for we to see how teams will actually pan out, trying a local coach this time around for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But we hear Guavon is actually on as interim manager at the moment. But let's see how that will go.
Qualification for the next edition of the African Cup of Nations is ongoing. Remember, next year will be another edition in Morocco, and so the teams do not have time, luxury of time. So Nigerian Football Federation must, in the days ahead, seek for, a head coach for the Super Eagles of Nigeria. The interim arrangement, for me, do not look very comfortable. Yes, Austin Guavon had been head coach of the Super Eagles in the same interim capacity in the past, but of course combining it with his present role as technical director of the Nigerian Football Federation. So let's see, and I hope that the Nigerian Football Federation will do what is right, seek and of course get the services of a new head coach for the Super Eagles of Nigeria, both either local or foreign. But the team needs a head coach so that it can flow with the programs of the competition. The Nations Cup is just under a year from now in Morocco. Well, that will be it for the Nigerian Football Federation parting ways with the coach of the team, as Coach Pesero, the Portuguese national that had tinkered the team to the last Nations Cup. We'd like to take a break now. When we return from the break, our next part of discussion will focus on the African Cup of, on the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup. You're aware that qualification for the quarterfinals has just one match, this weekend fixtures, to contend with. Then we know the quarterfinalists, the 8 teams that will play in the CAF Champions League quarterfinals, and the same 8 teams that will play in the CAF Confederations quarterfinal stages. You are aware that Rivers United is the only Nigerian team left in the competition, and they are in the CAF Confederations Cup, meaning that Nigerian teams have crashed out of the CAF Champions League, and of course equally a team had crashed out from the Confederations Cup, meaning it is only Rivers United that is there. Can Rivers United get the quarterfinal ticket this weekend at the Gospel Akpabio Stadium? When we return from a break, we'd like to hazard a guess and see whether Rivers United has a chance of being one of the quarterfinalists for this year's CAF Confederations Cup. All of this will come to you when we return from this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. It's a weekend edition of Sports Extraordinary here on Atlantic Television Network, and of course I have with me Kingsley Emmanuel. Together we'll be reviewing topical issues that bother us on sports this weekend. We've told you how the Bahrain Grand Prix is kick-starting Formula 1 season for 2023-2024, and of course Red Bull's Max Verstappen is continuing from where he stopped last month in the first practice section. Who can stop Max Verstappen? Well, we keep our fingers crossed and look forward to who can really stop this champion of the last 3 years in the Formula 1. Beyond that, we've taken a look at the Nigerian Football Federation parting ways with Coach Pesero after the expiration of his contract. Yes, he had a contract where he was charged to get to at least the semi-final stage of the African Cup of Nations. He surpassed that target and, of course, did appear in the final where he lost to Cote d'Ivoire. A lot of people have said that because he surpassed it, that the contract should be renegotiated. That the NFF did, but they seem to not to agree on the salary at the end of the month. He had a 50,000, in fact initially it was 70,000, reduced to 50,000 US dollars per month, but he is now asking for a whooping 120,000 US dollars, which the Nigerian Football Federation has refused, and because of that they have parted ways. We hope that they could return back to the negotiating table. But if not, there has been suggestion that local coaches can do the job even at a lesser fee. So in the days ahead, it will be very interesting to see what the Nigerian Football Federation will do, because the African Cup of Nations for the next edition is just about 9 months or so from now, and we definitely will have to have a head coach tinkering with the Super Eagles of Nigeria. The second part of our discussion on this edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition is borders on the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup. Setting out, Nigeria did enter 4 teams, 2 in the CAF Confederation Champions League and 2 in the CAF Confederations Cup. Now it's only Rivers United that is left. But before we get to how Rivers United can at least get to the quarterfinal stage this weekend, let's look at what has happened in the LI stage of the CAF Confederation, which is Champions League. There has been 4 groups of 4 teams each. 5 matches have been played in all of the groups, and the last game, the 6th, is this weekend. Meanwhile, some teams have already qualified for the quarterfinal, while some will have to decide their fate this weekend in their fixtures. First, let's look at Group A, Kesley. In Group A, we have TP Mazembe, and of course there is Sundowns, Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa, and of course the Nahuri, then of course Pyramids as well, completing in that group. As it stands now, Group A is already settled. TP Mazembe is leaders of that group, and they have 10 points. TP and Sundown as well. Both of them have 10 points, meaning they have qualified for the quarterfinal stage of the competition. There's a match this weekend between Pyramids and the Nodibu. This looks like an academic fixture. Both of them do not have any chance of progressing to the quarterfinal stage of the competition in Group A or from Group A.
Nothing to play for at all, in that particular encounter. And I think it's just for them just to boost, the points and see how they can be able, of course, to maybe test 1 or 2 of their players, in this particular one. So there's nothing to play for. You talk about Nodibu, they are 3rd on that group.
Nodibu, which country is presenting this one?
I think try to get that.
Okay.
They are 3rd in that group with 4 points, and Pyramid, of course, bottom of for the table with 4 points. So there's nothing to play for in that particular one. Of course, you take a look at Mamelodi Sundowns and TP Mazembe. They really, of course, merit to get through, in that particular one, because they have more pedigree, than the likes of the Bull and the likes of Pyramid in that particular one. So for me, I think there's nothing to play for in that one.
I think this weekend there's a crucial tie between TP Mazembe and of course Mamelodi Sundowns. This will decide which of them will top the group and which will come second. And I don't know whether you can take a look at that fixture. That looks like a crack fixture in African football for year 2024.
It's going to be a very tight one, because when you take a look at both teams, so far they've played 5 games, and out of those 5 games, both teams they've won 3, and they've also drew 1. They had 1 loss each, as it is. So it's been a very cagey encounter between both sides, and meeting at this point in time, I tell you, it's going to be very, very dicey, as it is. But you take a look at the way Mamelodi Sundowns, of course, they've gone so far. I think it has what it takes, of course, to put a very huge challenge against the TP Mazembe.
Let's look at Group B. ASEC Mimosa is in that group. There is TP. There is Simba FC Football Club from Tanzania. There's Wydad Casablanca, a one-time champion of the competition, and of course Johnson Galaxy as well in that group. 5 matches have been played between these two. ASEC so far leads in that group. They have Simba in second place position, and Wydad. It's not been currently settled. It is only ASEC that has qualified from that group. They have a crucial tie against Wydad. Can Wydad upset ASEC Mimosa and maybe FC Simba as well to come second in the group, because at least ASEC has qualified and only 2 teams will qualify from the group?
It's going to be a very, very tight one. Take a look at the situation at this point inside for Wydad. Can they take down ASEC at this point in time? ASEC, they've been very, very formidable in the CAF Champions League this time around. 5 games, 3 wins, 2 draws, and no loss, for them, this particular. Take a look at the way Wydad they've gone so far. 5 games, 2 wins, they've not drawn any game, but they've lost 3 of their matches. So when you take a look at strength to strength, you can't really compare with that strength now to ASEC, Mimosa in this particular one. So for me, I think it's really going to be a KJ encounter. For the Simba side, I think they have what it is, of course, to challenge the likes of Galazi, at this point in time. 5 games, 1 win, 3 draws, and 1 loss, of course, as it stands. So I think the team from Tanzania, talking about Simba, they also stand a chance. But it's really going to be a very difficult one for Wydad against ASEC.
ASEC Mimosa, one-time champion of the CAF Champions League, doing with their best to maintain their first place position in the Group B. Let's look at Group C quickly. Petro Atletico of Angola is in the first place position. They are courtesy of their 9 points. They are closely followed by Esperance of Tunis with 8 points. And Al Hilal of Omdurman, Sudan is third place with 5 points. Of course, Etoile Sahel do not have any chance there because they have only 4 points in that group. Petro Atletico has already qualified. Can Al Hilal upset Esperance?
It's a very dicey group already, Mr. C. Take a look at the teams down there. Petro de Luanda, ES Tunis, Al Hilal, aside from the ES.
Petro Luanda has a crucial game this weekend against Sahel, yes.
I don't think it's really going to be a very tight one. Sahel, yes, they will just fight, but I don't think they really have what it takes, to take down Petro de Rwanda. They've been very fantastic in the CAF Champions League. So you take a look at the 4 teams in that group. They are very, very formidable.
A draw. We see the 2 teams just qualify.
Yeah.
So Esperance will do everything possible to get a draw in Angola.
I think we'll just look forward to see how it is if they can actually get this draw. But for Petro de Rwanda, I'm very sure they're already through. I don't see ESA giving them any tough time down there. But let's see what comes up in that.
Okay, well, they are already out of the competition, so I'm not too sure that you have anything to fight for. So
nothing to fight for.
Petro
Rwanda have already
just
qualified.
Win. Okay, well, let's look at Group D quickly. There's Ahali in their group. There's young Africans from Tanzania in the group as well. There's a Nigerian club side, CRO Beledized, while there is Mendema from Ghana. Mendema already do not have any chance. They are already out, and but it's very tight between the Nigerian club side, CRO Beledized, and young Africans from Tanzania. Both of them have 8 points. So who qualifies alongside Ahali, champions who have already won and qualified from the group. From the latest results, it now decided in that group. That group is completely decided. It has to be Ahali and young Africans who have qualified because of goal difference. The Nigerian club side has been eliminated. So it is Ahali and young Africans in Group D.
Yes, really very
Ahali defending champions, you remember?
Yes, defending champion, and young Africans. One team, of course, they actually put up a very, very impressive performance last season. But this time around, of course, this is where they found themselves, and they're still showing that much progress. As a team who actually went that far, last season. I think for me, they actually merit to go down from this one particular one. You take a look at Ahali topping the group with about 12 points, and that of young Africans, 8 points. I think they've actually done very well. It's a good one. Let's see how far they will go, of course, in the next round of the competition.
Well, let's go to the second stage of CAF competition in football in Africa, and it has to do with the CAF Confederations Cup, where there's still the race as to qualify for the quarterfinal. This weekend we'll settle all the 8 teams that will play in the quarterfinal stage of the competition. First, let's look at Group A. We will have USB Anga. There is the Meden Future from Ghana. I think Azad as well in that group. It looks almost settled that these 2 teams are qualified. The Nigerian club side, defending champion, are already there. Their Modern Future as well will join them in the quarterfinal stage of the competition.
Yeah, US Alger, they're already up there with 10 points, in that particular group after playing 5 games, having 3 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. And Modern Future, one team as well that's actually coming up when it has to do with the CAF Champions League, coming up second down there with 8 points, 5 matches, 2 wins, 2 draws and 1 loss as well. So for me, I think it's a very impressive one. But I expected to see Al Hilal Benghazi, going forward in this one, but unfortunately, they were able, of course, to take up their chances. They already played 5 matches, and actually want to lost. They had 0 draws, but lost 3 of their matches, and that's a very huge setback, of course, for them. When you are in a group when you're a group that have US Orgers and a team like the Modern Future, who actually came up very, very strongly in the CAF Champions League this time around. But we'll see how far US Orgers and Modern Future will go.
Zamalek and Abu Zalem in Group B have qualified in that group because of their points. Zamalek have had maximum points, while we have seen Abu Salam have 9 points in that group.
Yeah, Zamalek, we know that that one team, of course, that always show more prowess, in competition, especially the CAF Champions League. 13 points. We've seen them, gathered so far in this competition. Abu Salem with 9 points, and I think if you take a look at it, they're the favorites. The two teams are the favorites, in that group, and that's why we've seen them go through.
Okay, let's look at Group D. RBS Bekene and, of course, State Malian have already qualified, courtesy of 11 points and 10 points each in that group. Let's now focus on Group C, where we have Rivers United. Rivers United is presently placed third on the table with just 9 points, but the second place team have the same 9 points, talking about Club Africain of Tunisia, while Dreams FC of Ghana is leading in that group with a courtesy of 12 points. They have won 4 games and they lost 1. But this weekend at the Godswill Akpabio Stadium in Uyo, Rivers United will attempt to qualify for the quarter-final stage of the competition in the encounter against them and the Dream FC leaders of that group. Rivers United need just 1 goal to qualify, but if they score 2 goals and don't concede, it will be better, because head-to-head is the rule, the first condition for qualification for the quarter-final stage of the competition. Can Rivers United, use the leaders of their group to qualify for the quarter-final stage of the competition in Uyo this weekend?
It's going to be very dicey, very, very dicey, because the last time both teams met, Dream FC beat Rivers United.
2 goals to 1?
2 goals to 1. And
in Ghana.
In Ghana. And what's the possibility of Rivers United beating them? If we take a look at the way they've played so far in this competition.
Rivers United have scored 3 goals in their last away fixture. In the match day 5, they scored 3 goals against APC Lobito of Angola.
They struggled against APC Lobito. APC Lobito, they are the whipping boys in this competition. We'll see the Club Africain go there, smash them. Dream FC, they've gone there and smashed them. So Rivers United went down there and they even considered, yes, they had the goals, but they had a little bit of struggle. So we expected them to have done more better against Lobito. So it's going to be a very dicey one against a hot, firing Dream FC side, at the Godswill Akpabio International Stadium this weekend. So for me, I think we'll just hope to see if they can be able to at least get that goal. Just 1 goal is needed for them to get that all 3 points. It will actually help them. And also we're looking forward for the results, against Club Africain and Lobito as well. So for me, let us see what comes up. I think Rivers United, they have to go all out for this one if they really want to win.
Talking about Rivers United going all out, the Rivers State government has so far supported the team financially to ensure they qualify for the quarter-final stage of the competition. Are they getting same number of support from the Nigerian Football Federation, given that they are the only Nigerian club side still left on the continent?
Not really at all, especially at this moment in time where the NFF, they are not even settled, to take a look at other things than the Super Eagles of Nigeria, issue of Pesero, and all of that. We're not seeing that level of support, coming from the, Nigerian Football Federation. But in the thing, we're seeing that support, coming from the state government. I think is actually a good way of supporting them. I think last time we saw them, they went down to the quarterfinals of the CAF Confederation Cup. Can they do it this time? It's looking very dicey. But we just hope that with this level of support, the players, of course, will be, motivated to go on there and make sure that they get they do the needful.
Well, Rivers United would like to wish them the very best of luck. In just as we speak, they should be getting ready for their very crunch encounter against Dreams FC of Ghana, leaders of that group. But they need to do everything possible to win them and qualify for the competition, and of course move into the quarter-final stage. Then continue to represent the flag of Nigeria at this year's African Cup of Nations Confederations Cup. So the best of luck from us here. But just before we wrap up the show, Kingsley, our sports extraordinaire for this weekend couldn't have been any other person than Super Eagles captain William Troost Ekong. Yes, the Nations Cup is come and gone, But William True can continue to be remembered for so many good things that he did at the African Cup of Nations. For the very first time in the history of the African Cup of Nations, in the last 20 years, no Nigerian player has won the player of the tournament. But William True, you know, did emerge as the player of the 2024 edition of the African Cup of Nations. The last player we saw win that competition was Austin J.J. Okocha, and that was 20 years ago. So the Nations Cup will have been finished, but William True is still being remembered by followers of football here in Nigeria.
Yeah, that was because of the exploits, of course, he did. A defender scoring 3 goals, in the African Cup of Nations is actually very.
The last time we saw that was Stephen Keshi as well, who scored that number of goals and emerging as the most scoring defender at the African Cup of Nations.
Impressive one for William True. We hope, of course, he continues with this impressive momentum. Though we hear that he actually had a surgery, which will actually take him, away from active football for the rest of the season. But we hope that when he bounces back, of course, he'll be able to get into action, favorably. Impressive one so far. And if you take a look at it, he's the only defender with the highest number of goals for the Super Eagles. 5 goals for him as well. So for me, I think that's a very huge one. We hope to see him, of course, continue with this level of momentum.
That will be it for this edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition. Until the next weekend, when we bring you yet another bomber package. Here is wishing Rivers United the very best. They have to qualify for the quarter-final stage of the competition. Remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.
From the line across the ocean. From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring all the sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the happenings around the globe. Stay focused on the fact today, only on ATN.